Okay, hello. My name is Shamele Jordon. Genealogy Quick Start. Welcome to the show today. Let us get going on Genealogy Quick Start. How's everyone doing today? How are you? Genealogy Quick Start, as you know, is available on YouTube, Facebook, and PhillyCam. We're actually going to start putting our shows on PhillyCam, so look for them on PhillyCam. Thank you so much to all of you who subscribe to YouTube. We love subscribers on our YouTube channel because you know what? That's the best way to stay up with what's going on with the show. And as soon as the show starts, you get a notification. So in a second here, I'm going to drop the link in here just in case there are any of you who are not subscribers to our YouTube channel. So hi, I see some folks in here. Please, when you come in, let us know where you're from. Gary Franklin is here. How are you, Gary from Toledo? And Dean Henry, my one and my two. So please, there's the link. If you are not a subscriber, we have another Ohio person. Ohio's trying to take over Genealogy Quick Start. We have Kathy here from Northwest Ohio. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Even if you're watching this in the replay, let us know where you're from. We want to know where you're from. We love to know who you are, where you are, and where you're from. Well, I'm going to tell you where I'm from. I am from East Berlin, New Jersey. And because of this guy right here that you see, my cousin, Floyd Riley, my family, we are just proud members of the community of East Berlin, New Jersey, also known as Berlin, New Jersey. So today is super special for me because the man who is responsible really for me doing genealogy is here today. You know, there was a time when I realized that people did not know that he was a real. My connection is messing up a little bit, but hey, so we'll talk more about the show today. But the reason Floyd is here, my cousin, is because I want to talk to you about virtual family reunions. Yes. Have you guys had a virtual family reunion? Do you have a reunion coming up? Are you planning to go ahead and do a virtual reunion? We have some tips from you. You're going to hear tips from the man who I say is the best family reunion person that I've ever met. And I've met a lot of family reunion people because I'm a member of the Family Reunion Institute. And I'm going to tell you more about that later. So before we get there, I want to bring on the guys that you know and love, my buddies, columnist, editor, author Jim Beidler, and author and blogger of Genealogy Tip of the Day, Michael John Neill. How are you guys?
We're good. I'm good. I shouldn't speak for Jim, but I'm good.
Hey, when I'm with the two of you folks, I am great.
Oh, that's so sweet. So do you guys have family? Do you attend family reunions?
Well, for about 6 or 7 years, I was historian for a family reunion.
Oh, wow.
I found their origins in Germany. I published a family surname history. I got a memorial stone done for the immigrant ancestor who had none.
Wow.
And then there was a falling out. But we're not going to talk about that part.
No,
so.
We got to talk about it. Was it about
I know.
He found their castle in Germany, and when they got into the money, that's when it all went downhill. That's what happened.
Money, the root of all evils. Michael, do you attend a family reunion?
I tell you, I went to one when I was 12 years old, and I gave off the genealogy and had to read it, and I still got that somewhere. And there was another one I used to go. It's not close for me to go anymore so much, but I used to go to one off and on.
Okay, let's see.
I get sucked into doing presentations is the problem when I go to those things.
What do you mean the
which is
problem? That
fine.
is your job. When
I
you
didn't say it.
when you
I meant problem in the best sense of the word. We'll put it that way.
Oh, okay. Okay. As genealogists, I'm as a member of the Family Reunion Institute. If there isn't any genealogy at the reunion, then it's just a picnic. So we make it a family reunion.
But you know, without getting sidetracked, the challenge with that is making it interesting to non-genealogists. You've got to try to cross that.
I think my cousin Floyd can help you out. And I think you might be surprised how interested your folks are. And we'll tell you about that when we get to the reunion thing. So I just want to say hi to, I don't know how to say UTE from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Can you write it in there phonetically? Do you guys know UTE, Thomas? Hi from Albuquerque. I want to come to New Mexico one time. Hi, multiple times. Hi, Sue from Nebraska. Hi, Marquita from Nashville. I went to Nashville twice. I love Nashville. Gulfport, Mississippi. Hi, Evelyn. We have Jenny from sunny, warm Nebraska. Whoa, we have Wayne from Camden, from Cherry Hill Family History Center. I want to give a special shout out to everyone who is here from the Cherry Hill Family History Center. I have not spoken out about my original loves besides AAGG is Cherry Hill Family History Center. We also have Sue Kaufman from, we know where Sue is from, Texas.
Houston.
And we have Ari here, another from Texas. And we have, both of them are from Michigan, really, aren't they? And we have Virginia from Charlotte, North Carolina. I actually was going to have a North Carolina book here. And we have Susan, we have Virginia. Welcome, welcome, Paula from West Deptford. All right. So let's go ahead and get going with the show. And I really love you guys' ideas. You guys are always coming up with amazing, amazing ideas. And so today's show is That My Mary? And I love this because we all run against that. How many people have Mary Smith that are the viewers? How many of you have Mary Smiths in your family? But Jim and Michael are going to show us it doesn't have to be a Mary in order for you to have that problem. So let's get going with the quick start for Is That My Mary? All right. So I got to find where my PowerPoint actually is.
Well, while you're doing that, I'll say I don't have any Mary Smiths, but I do have 4 John Millers.
Okay. So here, why did you give us this? Oh, yeah. So it's not just Mary Smith, right?
Right. I don't even remember why I gave you this. And memory is the first thing that goes when you're doing research. No, that the reason behind this one is when we talk about how to distinguish people and assuming that they're the same person, this is a great couple because people get them mixed up. The 2 Freund men you see there, this is a 1900 census index, they're George K. and George A. And in their defense, they were really good about using their middle initials. They were first cousins. Yeah. And they had the sense to marry women that had the same first name. And their wives were not relatives, which sometimes also has a whole other show. But
yes, that's another show. When we started,
you know, we would assume how many George Freunds married a Catherine. They're born about the same time, living in. They're farmers in Scott County, Iowa, near Davenport. And you know, the one thing we've always got to be careful of, we talk about, is that my Mary, but could there be more than one guy with this name? And even in this case, a little more extreme example, there's a very similar couple. And many times, if the name is as common as Smith, they might not be related. But when the name isn't quite as common, what you tend to get is because people name people for grandpa or grandma, you get a lot of repetitions of names. This is a slightly different example, but it also makes a similar point. This is in a much more rural area. There's 2 women, they're married. Nancy Rampley, one is a widow, one's not. So yeah, they're living in the same little town. And what one of them did, which is not indicated here, but I have relatives get these 2 people mixed up as well. They're 6 years apart in age. They're both born in Indiana, both living in the same little township there. They're wives of brothers. It turns out what makes this more confusing and why you really got to be careful. They were first cousins and they had the same maiden name. And so it gets well, people marry within the community. We've mentioned that before. People marry within the community, and so these two first cousins married brothers. They ended up having the same name. What one of them did, which isn't indicated here, she spelled her name with an IE, and she was not the census takers. They don't ask English questions about how you spell stuff. But Nancy, the second one, spelled her name with an IE to distinguish herself from the other one.
Thank you, Nancy. We appreciate that. So let's go ahead and get started with the quick start. And so you guys said for step one, you want to go ahead and determine the purpose of the record. So I totally understand, why you want to know the purpose of the record, but why is that important here when you have multiple people with the same name on the same record?
Well, a lot of times you're going to have to evaluate which records belong to which person, or if there are inaccuracies in the records, which information in that record do you think is correct, and which information are you just going to say, yeah, well, it's kind of, sort of, and we can just move on from there. So good try, Michael. You tried getting that in, but
I did.
This is live TV, folks.
This is worse than live TV. Yeah.
All right. So that's step one. You want to determine the purpose of the record. And then there is step two, which is to compare the record. So basically you're saying when you get a record, you want to kind of compare it to the other records that you already have. And so Michael, you have this brilliant example that I'm going to share. And so tell us about this record. Who's your daddy?
Very, very briefly, this is a letter of consent for Francis to get married in 1868, I believe. And this makes a couple of points. One, that you always want to look at as many records as you can, because they do say in here they're giving permission for, and they use the phrase "our daughter," but it turns out he was not the father; he was the stepfather of this individual. And at first you might think you've got the wrong person, because every other record gave a different father for her. And then you're seeing this marriage letter, or letter of permission, and it gives a whole different father's name. And sometimes you can say, well, it's a spelling variant or a handwriting variant or whatever, but her father's name was Peter Beidler, and this is Conrad Haas. It's a real stretch to say that's if you are convinced that's a spelling variant, you need to do something besides genealogy, because your tree is going to look worse than the worst ones on Ancestry. I mean,
now you bring up a great point with step, and I think a lot of people with their DNA, they're probably coming up and seeing all those steps coming through. We were lucky. My cousin Floyd started doing research early, and we found out that an ancestor that we're finding, like during Reconstruction, was a step. And so we didn't know that. Things wouldn't have looked right. So right. Jim brought another one in here for comparing records. I love this one, Jim. Let's show this one. And these happen to be one of Genealogy's favorite records, and that is
death certificate.
So talk to us about this, Jim.
Yeah, well, as a matter of fact, this is one of my Miller lines. And the first records I had found of my direct line of the family indicated that I should be looking for a Sarah or Sally Miller as the mother of my ancestor, who's a woman named Sibylla. But when I went to pull her death certificate, which we also have in here, says her mother's name is Carolyn Miller. But yeah, that's the one. But when Pennsylvania loosened up its death certificate laws and that we were able to easily get death certificates after a 50-year blackout period. Well, then
Thanks
I pulled.
to you. Go
Hmm?
ahead. Thanks to you. Don't be modest. Thanks to your help and
I
your
played a role.
coalition building.
I played a role in that. We were easily able to get the siblings death certificates, and one sibling, as you had flashed up there, it does say Sally Miller, Sally being a nickname for Sarah, so that one made sense, and then the other one that just said Miller. So here, what we had to eliminate was, could it have been a two-wife situation? In other words, that these were that these were some combination of half siblings with the same father but different mothers. But till it was all said and done, we were able to determine that Caroline was just simply a wrong memory by the person who was the informant on the death certificate.
So that's what I was going to ask you. Was the informant helpful in, because they say look at the informant because
right. Well, yeah, go to that one and you'll see that the informant is a James Mockmer, who's actually my great uncle. One more hit forward.
Oh, okay. That don't look like James Mockmer.
No, it's not. Yeah. James Mockmer's my great uncle, who I was named for, as far as the James, and so I would have thought otherwise he'd be a pretty credible witness, but this was his grandmother, great grandmother. Well, Caroline, aka Sarah, would have been his great grandmother. He would have never known her. So I think that has a part to play in why he got that name wrong. So, but like I say, didn't want to think that these names were right and automatically that they were half siblings. You wanted to prove it and I think there's another death certificate of a sibling that showed Sarah. In other words, children older and younger than the death certificate saying Caroline listed Sarah as the mother. So that was pretty definitive that it wasn't a two-wife situation, that Caroline was simply wrong. Although there's a great example that I saw once where a man had literally in sequence married 4 women named Catherine. They kept dying on him, and the lecturer who was giving this example was saying how you find this Abraham and Catherine in the marriage records. You start seeing all their children, Abraham and Catherine as the children. And if you don't go back and still scroll through those marriage records too, or the burials, and pick up a death of the first Catherine, well, you're missing a lot of the story.
You're gonna miss out for sure. So yeah, that's a bad example. That's an awful example. Talk to us about what's the baptism date. This one really threw me for a loop. What's going on here?
Yeah, well, it's just one of the things when we were tossing this around that Michael was pointing out is some records kind of seem more official than others.
Yeah, church baptism. How many of you out there would you think, which one of these is the one that would be like closest to the time period and all that? Church baptism.
Usually they are contemporaneously written or shortly afterwards, whereas this family Bible that we have on the left here, it's obviously done by a scrivener. In other words, it's not different inks. It's not that it was done event by event. It was done by somebody who was hired to do infill in the Bible. For This Katie Selena Staub, it gives her baptismal date as 1st of December 1878. Well, in the baptismal register, it gives the semi-fictional 31st of November, 1878, which doesn't,
I
you know,
thought that was. I was like, wait a minute, 31st of November.
yeah,
That's
and
fun.
the point kind of is, if you first see the baptism, you think, okay, well, that's a fictional date that literally doesn't exist. But is it the 30th of November, or do they mean the 1st of December? You know, and then when you compare it with the family Bible, that's when you're able to give greater weight to the fact that it must be 1st of December.
Love that example.
Those really aren't that inconsistent. I get there's no 31st of November, but they're not.
Yeah.
I thought you had there's one, I didn't use the image because it was a picture on Find a Grave that I didn't take, but they had the death date on a tombstone, and it's the 29th of February in 1847. And if you're familiar with how leap years work, that was not a leap year.
That's not the year.
It's a clear stone. I mean, it's not one of those that's hard to read, that's faded, that you say, well, it's really 28 and you're just being stupid. No, it's very easy to read. It's well preserved. But, going back to that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, going back to the first example where we had our daughter.
Yes.
And then it turns out he was the stepfather. Another way to try to find those mistakes or get around those mistakes is to trace the money. Because when the dad, you can't see my quotes, when the dad died in his estate settlement, this daughter is not mentioned. Now, she was deceased, of course, but if she had really been an heir, a child, her children.
Right.
So oftentimes they may call him daughter or whatever, son in certain records, but if they're really not, when they start divvying up the money, going back to that other castle example, that's when you can sometimes ferret out what the real relationships are. I mean, of course, DNA is a much better source too, but usually when they start divvying up the cash, that's when some of these things kind of they're a little more delineated somewhere.
Follow the money, right?
So Kathy Wiseman, Mulligan Wiseman says, I have 3 wife situations, maybe information on, death certificates and gravestone all are different. Ooh. Gary Franklin says, my 2 times great-grandfather married 2 consecutive Marys. Mary is the most popular name since Jesus.
The flip side of this, where it can be hard to distinguish, is because I've got one where he had 1 child with his first wife. She died, then he married her sister, and had more children with the sister.
Western like that.
And because the maiden name is the same for it's the flip side of that. The maiden name is the same for all of them, and you might be tempted to think, well, it's the same woman, and they just got the name mixed up, like the example that Jim had. And in this case, they weren't getting the names mixed up. There was a first wife and a second wife, same maiden name, because they were sisters. And that's one where the DNA won't help you really either. You think about that for a second.
It'll make it worse, actually. So talk to us about step 3, which is to check historical context. How is that going to help with, is this my Mary?
Yeah, well, I would remark, based on what Michael was saying about that example of following the money, like in an estate settlement. That what he's saying is very common in the 1800s, early 1900s. But today probably there's at least a decent shot that stepchild might be formally adopted, and then they would be in the money. That just basically didn't happen 100 years ago. So that's an example of kind of knowing the history and knowing what the odds are.
Love that. So step 4 is to check the chronology. So you created this chronology here. So talk to us about that here. So what's this all about?
Yeah, well, the idea is that there are certain records that an awful lot of people are going to generate, and for the most part, they come in a certain chronological order, And, based on that, you may be able to, suss out whether you have two Marys or just one Mary, or the opposite. Do you have three different Marys who are overlapping? And just some examples if you're looking at a family where it's a husband and wife, and you're wondering, are all the children them, or is it a second couple by the same names? Well, the most obvious thing is, are the children spaced right? If you've got children 4 and 5 months apart, red flag, and then you better start critically examining whether you're going to peel off a bunch of them into a second couple. So that's one example. So
okay, so that's fantastic. Go ahead.
I'm going to play devil's advocate with Jim's chronology a little bit. The steps he's got work great, but not if you're working. I'm thinking of working in the South, like Virginia in particular. You're not the baptisms, the confirmations, not going to happen. For the most part, because most of those denominations did not practice infant baptism. When you get those things, you do want to look at those, but it can be a little more difficult because those steps are not going to be there. But that's when it's really important to look at tax lists and other things to see when they start appearing, because that's when they are of age. And I would even add, I know when we had the discussion of this last week, we mentioned briefly talking about too old to buy property and things of that type, and you want to keep that in mind. But I could think of one right off the top of my head. Her hubby died in Indiana, and all her kids had the audacity to leave. And so at 65-ish, she goes to Iowa, because that's where the kids are all at. And she buys a 20-acre farm, and that's where she's probably crowding 70 when she buys it. So once in a while that happened, but it goes back to, you want to look at like Jim mentioned earlier, you want to look at everything in context. In the context of what was going on in her life, that made a lot of sense. And my theory is, she did not want to stay in Indiana all by herself. She wanted to be in Iowa near her kids, but I am not living in the same house with any of my kids. I need my own space. And so
now you understand. Are you saying you understand that sentiment now?
A little bit, but it all goes back to looking at everything in context. I mean, she was with the kids, but not in the same household with the kids.
So
you never know. Maybe nobody wanted her with them either. I don't know.
So, when you're trying to distinguish one person from the other, like there's all different kinds of tools and tips that you can do, but it's really important that as you figure this out, that you go ahead and document your findings, because, the characteristics, like you said, of the Mary, you'll be able to trace them through, and you don't want to keep reworking the same problem again and again. And so I'm going to show you a book that I use to help me with that. How do you guys document your findings? What do you guys do?
I would generally say keep track of everything you find. And if you eliminate somebody as your Mary or your John or your other common name that irritates us, I suggest to people, write what you found about this person. And then if you thought it was the wrong dude or dudette, write down briefly, you're not writing an article for a journal, briefly write down why you think this is not your Mary or your John. So that later, if you find it again, I already looked at that, and here's why I thought that. Or you could say later, why did I think that? What was I inhaling when I wrote that down? And you can go back and if you don't track that, you can't reevaluate.
Speaking of inhaling, I will quickly say some of the things that the way to document findings would be lineage software. Put it in your lineage software. 2, update a research report. Hopefully, whenever you're doing research or using a research report. 3, create a blog post. I bet half of Michael's books are because of research questions he had, and he documented his findings in a blog post, which soon became a book.
The thing about a blog post, real quickly, is when you write something up for somebody else to look at and read, that forces you to hopefully reevaluate your thought process and your logic and your reasons. One good way to find, not that anybody listening would make mistakes, but for other people, it would be a really good way for them to see their errors. when they do that.
All right,
That's
let's go through the steps that Michael and Jim came up with. I love. Is this my Mary Smith? So step one is first to determine the purpose of the record. Step two is to compare to other records. So your one record is not an island. You have to compare it to the body of your work. Step three is to check historical context. Step four is to check the chronology. Is she old enough? Were they young enough? All of that stuff. Check those things out. Step five is then to document your findings so that you're not repeating this again and again and again. So guys, thank you so much. I enjoy doing Is That My Mary Smith? I'll see you guys on the flip side. Hello, everybody. Welcome. We are going to do our second quick start, and that is virtual family reunions. You guys have a reunion this year? Did you guys tell me that? Write that in the comments. Are you guys having reunions? Did you have a virtual reunion in 2020? Are you planning a virtual reunion in 2021? Let me know. What are you guys doing? So without further ado, I would like to bring on my main guy who got me into this stuff. There he is, my cousin Floyd Riley. How you doing today, Floyd?
I'm doing fine. And you?
I'm good. So there was a time, like I talk about Floyd all the time when I give presentations. And because I talk about him so much, people actually thought that he was a fictional character that I used as an example. But this is my cousin Floyd. He's a real person. So Floyd, in the flesh. So since 1984, the Toomer family has had reunions because of my cousin Floyd. He has that's major resilience, determination to kind of keep that many people going for that long. And so what I wanted him to do is come here today and share those tips with you, because family's not easy by any stretch of the imagination, right, Floyd? So Floyd, first tell us, why did you even take this up? Why are you so involved in loving doing family reunions?
Well, I was always just interested in where we came from, and I was always interested in how people were related. And since my mother was one of 16, I had to learn, who the uncles were, who the aunts were, who were their children. My second oldest uncle had 16 children himself. Then I had an aunt with 12 children, and one was 11, one was 9. I have over 75 first cousins. So therefore, the idea of us getting together was important, and knowing one another and interacting and being a family.
And being a family. And because of that, we know, like, we have this extended, huge extended network. So let's go ahead and get started with the quick start for creating a virtual reunion. So, this year was a different year for all of us. And we were already ready because 2020, we're even year reunion, right? And so when we went on shutdown, I said immediately, don't even use the C word. We will not be canceling our reunion, right? And
you
so
were the only one, because everybody else was ready to cancel. And the virtual family reunion was the result of your persistence in saying, no, we're going to have it. I'll figure out a way, because, you're the tech person. So that's what happened. I said, it's your baby. It's your baby.
It's my baby. Go run with it, right? He's done that a lot, and that really helped me out in a lot of ways. And so for the quick start that Floyd created, step one is who's invited, right? This is important.
Absolutely.
This is important because people's feelings get hurt. You can't kind of be loosey-goosey. So Floyd, talk to us about, some of the different examples of how people do their reunions?
Okay, it depends on how large the reunion is. Sometimes we have small reunions or we have large reunions. But if you have descendants of a couple, it could be a great grandparent or a great great grandparent or what, in that category, then you will identify them. That is the person that all of you have in common. You've all descended from that couple. So therefore, that's where that reunion come in, that tie, because they are either some type of a grandparent, great,
Yes.
whatever. And that's one way. And that's a common way, the most common. That's how we do the tumors. We're all descendants from, William and Mary tumor. And we go down and then that's how we have our common bond.
And so I have a friend, hers is based off of two siblings because they were enslaved, they didn't know the parent. And then I also have down south, we have the Stanford reunion in Barber County, and it's just the surname Stanford. So there's different clumps of Stanfords that are not necessarily related. And then there's like some interesting, go ahead.
Well, that's similar to, remember the book that Dorothy Sproul Redford wrote, Somerset Homecoming, and that was a group of people that all were on the same plantation, and so therefore they had a reunion, and they weren't all blood related, but they were plantation cousins. Some of them were blood cousins, some were plantation cousins, and they came together and had that reunion. That was the common theme.
So so interesting mixes. So whatever it is, you just need to figure it out so people's feelings don't get hurt, and you don't, people aren't, blackballing, blacklisting, having fallouts before your reunion start. So that's step one. Step two is to establish a committee. So talk to us. Oh, I wanted to show this because we said who's invited. And so our reunion is based off of, did I remove it? Off of these folks. So all the descendants of these guys are invited to our reunion. So we don't have any kind of, there's no kind of, you're automatically invited. Don't expect the invitation. All right. So, so this is key, establishing a committee. So talk to me about establishing a committee.
Well, the thing is,
why you establish the committee? Because there's a lot of people out there who can do stuff and I don't need anybody.
Well, you have to have, the responsibility is so awesome that you have to have different individuals who will fulfill the obligation or the responsibility of performing their specific task. So you have to say who's going to do what, when are they going to do it, how are they going to do it. So you have to have a sort of, I don't want to say governing body, but you have to have a group of people that come together to make those decisions, because you can't do it on your own. It has to be a group of people that are totally invested in this, in the concept of the reunion. And you have to know why you're having the reunion. You have to realize if the focus of the reunion is to get people together, then you can't become frustrated and throw your hands up when something doesn't go your way, or somebody's idea is not the same as yours. Because, the idea is sometimes you have to compromise and keep your thoughts together, keep yourself together, because the idea is to get them all together on that specific day. So suck it up.
And if you're doing too much, you kind of lose sight of that. Would you agree?
Yes, absolutely. You have to take a step back and breathe.
Yep. And so that's the why. So how do you do it? You said you don't have to establish a governing body, but in some way you have to do, talk about the how.
Well, what we did I'm involved in 4 different reunions on my mother and father's side. But on the tumor side, what we did is we decided that we wanted to make sure we had branch representation. So we had individuals from each branch. If anybody wanted to join, we open it up and we strive to get at least 1, 2, or 3 members from each of the participating branches to be involved in the decision making. And that also helps because that person also intercedes between the committee and their branch, and they share information, and they, they smooth over situations that might bubble up in their own little branch because they have the connection, a closer connection. So that's really important to have that communication with each branch.
Okay, so we know who's invited and we have established a committee. Now we have a committee, and the whole goal, like, to me, this is the funnest part, like creating, planning activities and scheduling activities.
Yeah.
And so so there's two types of activities, not two types. I would say there's family history, and then there's like games and awards. So talk to us about the family history aspect. I'll talk about this one that we have now, and you talk about the presentation. Now. Phenomenal.
Okay, well, we had our first virtual reunion this year. And so it's a little different than when you have your actual reunion. But what we did was we had a segment where we presented family history. And that was on, I believe, Friday. Was it Friday? We did a presentation. I did a slide presentation, and we talked about the family. And what we try to do is share information that's new to some of them, to the majority of them. We try to share some of our latest finds. Shamele and I, we're constantly researching. And there's so much that we have to share with them. We have to bring them up to date. And having that historic presentation is good.
Yes.
It excites them.
And they were so excited that we're actually going to start a genealogy group in the family, like actually do a genealogy group. We also do storytelling. Family reunions are great for storytelling. And I meant to piggyback on Floyd's presentation. What's cool about the presentation was we didn't have to worry about being in a park and worrying about sunlight, because we have a hard time with that. Also, you have a captive audience. And so we did a storytelling this time called Meet the First Cousins. And so like Floyd said, his mom is one of 16. And so a lot of the people that attended the reunion do not know who the original first cousins are, which Floyd is one of 75 of. And so we had something called Meet the First Cousins. And I created just a slide. This is a sample. I think I have a sample slide. Nope, I don't. I had a sample slide of Meet the First Cousins. And we would have the first cousins that were there talk about, their parents and talk about their siblings. And so that was just a cool way for everybody to kind of, to do storytelling. We also had awards. So talk about this. Floyd started this like from beginning.
Yeah, we started awards back in the 80s. 84 was the first one. So what we do is we always give something out to the baby award is to the youngest family member.
The baby award, let me just tell y'all, the baby award is serious business. Okay? Serious business.
Yes.
You got to be very clear about the rules. We say you got to be there to win. My cousin had a baby in like July. We have our reunion in August, and he had his baby. I think it was like January. He was like, I'll probably win the reunion. We was like, dude, your baby will be a citizen by the time the reunion gets around.
12, 13 more babies born since January, And so that's funny, that one. We had the newlywed for those who just gotten married recently. And it's funny because you don't know who's going to win the award because you don't know who's coming. And because the family is so large, you don't know exactly who has been born or who has gotten married most recent. And so therefore, when they start throwing their dates out there, it's like, oh man, people get knocked off their throne all the time. They're ready to go receive the award and somebody else gets the reward. It's really funny, but it's great. It's a great time.
Yeah.
Those that travel the folks to get farthest to get there, they get the distance award, which is usually a little trophy with a little jalopy or something like that, a car or something on it. Those who have been married the longest, and the largest branch that's represented. We try to see how many are there from each particular branch, and so it's a lot of different categories that we try to. Sometimes we add additional or drop some, but we try to give everybody some type of recognition.
And it's a lot of fun. People love that. People
Yeah.
actually love that. We also played games. So those were the awards. We also played games, and we had what I was calling pandemic games. And this was a game called Who's That Masked Tumor? Who's that masked man? So because everybody is styling and profiling in their mask, I just grabbed some photos from Facebook and put them together, and you gamify it, right? You gamify it. And
Everybody they love the idea of competition, so that sucks everybody in.
talking about competition, okay? Have you guys played Kahoot with your family? This is the best thing in the world to do with your family. Play Kahoot. You put family history questions in there, and it's multiple choice. Kahoot is absolutely free. And the family gets very serious about this game. Like, it is a serious business. If your family is as competitive as our family is. And everyone mentioned, my computer froze up. I would have won that game. At least 3 people told me that. Did you hear that too, Floyd?
I had at least 5 told me that I could have won that game, except I had a jam with my computer, or something happened, or it froze. Everybody, I knew the answer. I knew it.
All right, let's move on to. So those are some ideas of different things that you do. Go ahead.
The Kahoot game, it also allows individuals to learn about the family history, because the questions are related around the family history, things that Shamele and I have uncovered, as well as things that they may not know or may know about the family. And we put those in the question format, and then that's how they answer. So it's a learning experience as well, sharing the family history. That's the important part about it. That's why we play it.
That's why we play it, right? It's not all about the game, but and make the questions fun and crazy. So yes. That was a lot. That was good. Thanks for throwing that in there. So the next step is to 4. You got your games. Now you want to invite your family. So this is where kind of more the virtual stuff comes in, but really it's not based on the virtual stuff. It's general stuff that you would do, but maybe doing it a little more technically. So there's a lot of ways to invite your family. I would suggest that you, first of all, make sure that you digitize it. You can use Word or Excel, but a nice little free thing that I use is MailChimp. MailChimp is free, and you can easily just put people's emails in there and create newsletters in there. And it is a nice, simple way to invite people. If you don't like MailChimp, I have a friend, she doesn't like MailChimp. You can get something like Constant Contact, but that costs money. You can use Google, or you could just use Word, whatever is easiest for you. But I love things like MailChimp because you create kind of a mailing list and you can email people. So when you're inviting people, so to build your contact list, you can also use Google. Google has, and we didn't do this for the tumors, but Google has where you can create a form in Google. Once you create your form, you can then have an Excel spreadsheet behind it. So when people, you can email that link out to people, they fill in that form, like, are you coming to the reunion? We need your name, whatever you want to collect from them. And when they respond, hit submit, it will populate an Excel spreadsheet. So just Google using Google Forms and spreadsheets, and you should be able to get that. So that's how you can build your contact list. Also, with inviting family, you want to send them invitations to come. And so again, MailChimp. Does anybody out there use something similar to MailChimp that you like or similar to Google? Definitely let me know, because I would definitely like to hear about that. But MailChimp right now is it for me, and Google Forms. And people, the family will feel extra special. Like, look at my family using MailChimp, right? So then you want to manage registrations, okay? Now, I will say for our reunion, I used Eventbrite. I don't know if I would do that again. Since our reunion was free, Eventbrite allows you to do free registrations. My struggle with Eventbrite was the ability to have a 2-day event and ease of registration. People were struggling with, I need to register my 5 grandkids for Friday, but they not coming Saturday. Just 2 of my grandkids are coming. And so it was a little challenging. And so what I did is just, for those who could use Eventbrite, use Eventbrite. If you couldn't, just email me. Just send me an email. And we just kept track of those in an Excel file. Whatever's easiest for you, just do it that way. So I want to if anybody knows any examples of better registration tools, definitely put it in the comments, because I would definitely love to know about those. Floyd, you're laughing.
Because they were calling me, and I was telling them, no, Shamele has the form on. Well, I can give it to you. I don't want it. I'm not going to take it. Send it to Shamele.
That's important, that when you create a process, it all needs to kind of funnel through to the same place. Do you still do the further away for the virtual free reunion? Dean, say that again so I can understand. The name of the Somerset book was Somerset Homecoming by Dorothy Sproul, right, Floyd? There it is. Nice. We got our book club. That's perfect, Floyd. All righty. So think twice. If you're doing a 1-day event, then Eventbrite might work. If you're doing 2 days and you really need to understand, how many people are coming, make sure that you do a lot of hand holding and try to make it as simple for your family as possible. So you've invited your family, and now it is time to enjoy your reunion. So what do you do? Where do you do it? So we did it on Zoom, and you know that Zoom allows you free time, but I went ahead and paid the basic fee to have the normal 100, right? And I was concerned that we would go above 100. And so what Zoom allows you to do is just pay, I think it was $40 or $50 for 1 month, but you have to remember to cancel it, because they'll charge you again to have an extra 100 or 150 people. So, and also, this is why virtual reunions are better, is because you can record it. And because the reunion was 4 hours long, 2 hours on each day, and actually it went longer.
On the second day, yeah.
Zoom allows you to get expanded space, like $40 or $50 a month. And so you can get more gigabytes, so you can record the entire reunion. So any last minute thoughts on, doing this was your first virtual reunion, Floyd. What did you think?
Yeah. The numbers are not the same as when we went out to the park. However, it was a venue that allowed us to continue without breaking the tradition of the reunion. And that was really important. And that the people that did come on, it was Friday and Saturday, some were on their birthdays, some were just one, but they thoroughly enjoyed it. and they talked about it as if it was like the best ice cream that they had eaten in a long time.
And they didn't leave. I left my computer and I went somewhere. I had to go take my uncle home. And I want to talk about that real quick about a virtual reunion that we had to do, and it's very important to do, is support. You have people who are not, even though, we're doing Zoom a lot, there's a lot of people who are not comfortable with Zoom and all of that. What we did is the week of the reunion is we opened up the Zoom every day at the same time. We sent links to people to come in, try it out, test things out. People would come in and they'd say, oh, I can't hear you, or something's not, working. And they would go and get help. Also, if you can get people to, like my uncle, I didn't think his phone might not have been good enough for him to get on. So I had him come here. We masked up and we sat in different areas, have them come over so that they can get on the Zoom. But what I'm saying is just provide that support ahead of time. The people chance to try out.
That's very important because a lot of people aren't tech savvy. And every time I get on, even like today, I panic because I'm thinking it's not going to work. And Shamele will tell you, I know she hates to talk to me like the hour before because I cannot focus. And I'm like, it's not working. And I start panicking. It's not working. See, when it comes to this part of it, this is my weakness. I'm not really strong in this area. And I panic because I don't want to appear not ready, disheveled, etc. I tell you.
So give people a chance, an opportunity to catch up with the tech and help them out. So let's run through the steps for virtual family reunion. Is 1, to first determine who's invited. Step 2 is to establish a committee. Do not do this all by yourself. Okay. Step 3 is to schedule and plan activities. Step 4 is to then invite your family. Step 5 is then to enjoy your reunion. I want to tell you guys about 2 resources. One is Reunions Magazine. If you go right now to reunionsmag.com, Edith has some freebies on there for you. You want to sign up for her newsletter because she just started publishing newsletters again, and she's going to do one. The next one will be in December. So go to reunionsmag.com for help. And there's so many resources there. And these are resources you want to give to the millennials and to the people younger than you to say, hey, you can help us to do the reunion. This is how you do it. Another, which Floyd was a member of the Family Reunion Institute, familyreunioninstitute.net. If you go there, they also have resources and they also have mentors there that can help you with planning your family reunion. So, and the Family Reunion Institute, just to give you a little genealogy of organizations, the Family Reunion Institute is kind of like the mama of AAGG, because it was the people sitting around in the Family Reunion Institute that eventually said, hey, we need to have a focus, right, Floyd? Floyd was a charter member. Am I telling the truth, Floyd?
Charter member, yes.
All right, so let's bring back my buddies to the stream to wrap this up. Guys, thank you. I feel more confident about knowing if this is my Henry tumor or not. Floyd didn't actually tell his Henry tumor story, but he had 2 Henry tumors. So really quick, you can have a reunion. Your reunion, you can go anywhere and do anything. Give me the place that you're going to take your family, and what are you going to do there?
I'm going to take the Dobb family to Eiserfeld, Germany, where there's a house that was built in 1621 by the great-grandfather of their immigrant ancestor.
Michael?
I will take the Neill family to Newtown, Limavada. I think I pronounced that right, maybe. In County Derry in Northern Ireland.
Floyd?
I would travel to Perry, Georgia in Houston County on the way down, would stop in Chatham County, North Carolina, where the tumors originally were, and they were transported as slaves down to Perry, Georgia, in Houston County, and go through the town and show them the things that relate to our family.
Fantastic. Thank you guys so
Thank
much
you.
for doing the show today.
Thank you,
Have a good
Shamele.
one. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Floyd. Need
Thank
to have you
so
back.
much, Floyd. Don't drop,
Enjoyed it.
Floyd. Thank you. That's my cousin, y'all.